Welcome to your source of comic book news and culture, Variant Edition. I'm Lewis.
And I'm Kevin, and we've got a pretty big episode this week. We've got some reviews. We've got a new fanboy vocab, but we're not going to do the news because we went to go see Captain America.
That's right. It's very huge. There's a lot of repercussions. Let's just put it this way. Marvel was able to capture lightning in a bottle again. Absolutely incredible. I can't even physically I can't emote enough right now without breaking something. So
yeah, I mean, we just saw it a couple hours ago, so it's probably hasn't like completely digested yet. So, if we come off a bit fanboyish, we apologize.
Bear with us.
But I will say it's probably the best Marvel movie to date.
Yep, I'm not gonna lie. If Iron Man was the template, this Captain America sequel was definitely the concrete model that they are gonna have to follow to keep this going into the future. Definitely.
This is a movie that was completely accessible to anybody. You didn't even need to see the first Captain America movie to make any sense of this.
No, you really didn't. You could have just jumped on cold.
It didn't feel like a comic book movie. There was one part in the middle that, as a comic book fan, actually was very cool and maybe is not a fan, might feel a little bit comic booky.
Yeah.
But for the rest of it, doesn't even feel like a comic book movie.
It fit in very well. Like, it really touched upon the whole legacy of Captain America in the most proper way possible. And it just made sense, and it worked for that little bit of the movie. It didn't really throw you off.
They play reverently with all of Cap's toys. So, and some of it's very subtle, like they'll throw names around, and some of it's actually quite important, know. And it's like they could have done generic villains or names or whatever. Don't want to give too much away. But instead, they pull from, Cap's very rich history. And, they go back deep and recent.
Recent stuff.
They really jump all over the place. And
it's great.
Fantastic.
A lot of big theme stuff, a very big plot stuff that was just, laid down the groundwork for what's going to happen possibly in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So we definitely have to keep an eye on it to see what happens and how that affects the Avengers movies and everybody else.
You can definitely look at this in two different ways. One, looking at it as how it fits the bigger Marvel picture, which they've now got scoped out to, 2028 or something? It's clear that they've architected this universe very tightly. Well, enough, so that they have a broad picture of the future, but a pretty good idea of what's going forward. And then on the other side of it, just as a movie, because as a movie, this felt like, what were we saying? It's like a 70s political espionage thriller crossed with some
with Bourne Identity stuff, the action sequences, the driving, the fighting, just the everything. It was just really an attack on your senses, and with the story on top of that, it was just kind of smack in the face.
Yeah, some nice twists.
Yeah,
and a big shock, and then a twist. It's again, we're trying to be as non-spoiler as possible because that's the best way to see this movie.
Yep.
It's really good to see it as cold as you can. If somebody starts talking about it,
walk away.
Walk away.
Punch him in the face and then walk away.
This is really a movie to see cold because the original trailers were kind of vague.
Yeah.
It was great. And then there was this movie ad that was a little more specific, and that kind of upset me a little bit because I wanted to see it pretty cold, but even that didn't ruin it for me. So it was still pretty cool.
Very cool.
And it's interesting because it is definitely a setup movie. Well, no, it stands alone completely well on its own. It's not it doesn't feel like it's finished because it's a very concise story.
Yeah.
But it opens up so many things like you were mentioning before.
Yep.
It's
the tone and just it's going to have a really good domino effect, I like to think of it, on everybody else, including the Avengers.
And don't forget to stay for the mid-credit and post-credit scenes.
Yep. It's Marvel tradition, and you're not a fan if you don't do it, so you have to stay.
Yeah. So this is definitely a 4 stars, 5 stars, 2 thumbs up, whatever scale you have it's at the top.
At the top. That's right.
We don't have a scale, do we?
No, we just use our own. We just make our own vocabulary.
Yeah.
Which is always fun too, because then you just throw everybody else off, and they're just kind of baffled by what
this is definitely a must see if you're a Marvel movie fan. If you're a Captain America fan, this is. If you like the first movie, this is amazing.
Yep.
And if you're just an action movie fan, this is a really good movie.
Really good.
So I can't wait for the rest of this year. God, this is a busy year.
It's a very busy year. May, especially for not only Marvel, just a lot of people. May's going to be busy. You got Spider-Man, then you got Guardians of the Galaxy in August, It's just gonna be
And we got Godzilla.
This year,
big
another
year.
summer movie blockbuster year, which we've had probably in like 2-3 years or so since the last Iron Man.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be very, very overwhelming and very hard on the wallet, but worth it.
But lots of fun. So, all right, so that's kind of like our little spoiler-free review. Now let's go on to some reviews and then another fanboy vocab, and this one's going to be a mouthful.
Oh yeah. I hope you brought some tea or some water. Just have something next to you.
Yeah, it'll be good.
Now, talk about a book with a nice, pleasant beginning. Here we have Magnus Robot Fighter, Issue 1, a story about a man who lives in a nice place where he teaches children and even robots about the ideals of Frederick Douglass, and then on to martial arts self-defense, and having a nice fishing trip with an artificial intelligence-powered computer that's also his dad. It sounds interesting, right? Well, things get even weirder as the peaceful town of Maurice Peak gets attacked by an invading force, and Mr. Magnus, our central character, is thrown into action, or so we think. Fast forward to what looks like to be a more distant future than we thought we had already discovered in the first few pages of this intriguing book, to a society straight out of a sci-fi movie, which bears a strong, similar resemblance to Blade Runner and maybe a little touch of The Fifth Element too. Mr. Magnus wakes up to the reality of his actual life and quickly starts to learn that whatever life he thought he once knew is gone, or maybe was a dream at one point. Right out of the gate, this book is filled with incredible artwork that sways between modern classic blend to all-out action and beautifully detailed outside environments. Corey Smith delivers a very strong and powerful first issue visually, while Fred Van Lente draws the reader in with a very well-crafted story of mystery, suspense, and action that leaves you asking questions and demanding answers. And by the time you reach the end of the first issue, you'll be itching for the next one to come out. This is a great book. It's very intriguing. It really draws you in. And it looks to be one of the handful that Dynamite will be launching, along with a few other titles, including Dr. Spectre, Solar the Man of the Atom, and Turok the Dinosaur Hunter, during what's being called the Gold Key Universe. Based off this read alone, I'm definitely going to pick up a couple more of these titles and see what this revamped universe is all about, and I recommend you guys do too.
So now I'm taking a look at Moon Knight #2. Now this is the new Marvel Now Moon Knight launch, and again, we covered the first issue, but in this case it actually makes sense to cover the second issue because it wasn't so obvious in the first issue of this book, but this second issue is completely standalone, and I'm wondering if the entire series is going to be like loosely connected stories or very, very standalone issues. In this case, issue #2, same team, Warren Ellis, Declan Shalvey, and it's a complete standalone issue. And in fact, it actually has a slight different feel than the previous issue. I mean, it's consistent, but the action takes it to a different level, okay? This is the Warren Ellis that I love, okay? Warren Ellis knows how to tell a story economically so that every word, every panel, every color, okay, is exactly what's needed and nothing more. This issue is, there's that saying where when you're a hammer, all you know is nails, This kind of takes that to the extreme. Somebody who has been left in the cold on a mission has decided to take matters in his own hands and show those people who left him, what they did. And Moon Knight becomes aware of this and then tries to stop it. And it's funny because it's Moon Knight. It's very clearly Moon Knight. With the gadgets, he's definitely on the Batman side of the, if we're swinging the pendulum. Last issue was more of a Bruce Wayne detective. This is Batman, straight out Batman, and it is awesome. But getting back to Warren Ellis, every panel of this book is perfect. Declan Shalvey does a fantastic job. There was one panel at the very beginning of the book that was confusing. I'm like, what is going on here? You flip the page and it's like, oh, that's what's happening. He does this like panel grid, so you see different characters and what's happening to them one by one by one. Amazing. It's like I said, Warren Ellis has done this one issue storytelling before. He does it well in Fell. Hopefully that ever comes back. And Global Frequency, every issue not only was an amazing story told in one issue, but almost felt like a different book every single issue. If he's going to do something similar to that in Moon Knight, this is going to be an amazing book on all the critics' lists. I mean, it's on my list already.
And now for a little change in scenery. We travel back to a time of sorcery and magic where monsters lurked in the shadows and pirates were the rulers of the sea and kings waged wars to further their powerful reach and add more tales to their legendary lives. I speak of none other than Conan the Barbarian. This book is actually a 6-part miniseries that is part 2 from an original story written by Conan creator, the legendary Robert E. Howard, titled The Hour of the Dragon. Now, the first part of the story was published way back in 2013, well, it feels like way back, and now this is the second part conclusion to that story. Now, this book is being scripted by Timothy Truman and beautifully illustrated by Thomas Giorgio. And when I say beautifully illustrated, I mean this man has the touch of God when it comes to putting pencil on paper. His panel work, let alone the large full-page spreads on this book, are breathtaking, easily immersing the reader in adventure with this mighty Cimmerian. This book has an incredible sense of classic comic art, like something from the Silver or even Golden Age. I haven't seen amazing art like this since Cary Nord was drawing Conan during Kurt Busiek's legendary run on the last volume. Now, if you haven't read the first part of this story, don't worry, as it is slightly referenced in the beginning and somewhat summed up pretty well for anybody jumping on cold, just like I did. But it wouldn't hurt to go out and buy it anyway because, I said so and we endorse it. This story takes place somewhat in the past as we see Conan as a well-seasoned and aged king, telling what I'm sure is one of his many great adventures to a young scribe who is chronicling his great king's mythos. Now, what I enjoy most about this book is the freedom the reader has to just let their mind wander and get lost in this great fantasy and not be so bogged down and worried about, so much backstory, origins, and continuity, and take solace in the fact that this is a great classic fantasy story with incredible visuals and a lot of bloody action. Conan is on the hunt for a mystical, powerful gem, but little does he know he's being trailed by what seems to be a group of powerful sorcerers who also seeks the gem's immense power. Now, for fans of a great classic action-adventure fantasy, I know that's like 25 genres in one, this book is a must. Or if you're looking for a break from the superheroics and want to experience a stunning fantasy epic and seeing what an A-list artist, not actor, has to offer this amazing medium we call comics, I command you to get this book and commence drooling. The gods of old have returned to Earth to reclaim what is properly theirs and are going to make sure the human race feels a wrath that has not been seen since the days of the Old Testament. The title of this book is called God is Dead. Not only is it very bold, but it totally sucks you in as a reader and a human to find out what this story is all about. Kudos goes to John Hickman and everybody at the marketing department over at Avatar Press on getting everybody's attention. Now, if you know your history and paid attention during world cultures and religion class in college or high school, then you're in for a treat with this book. The concept seems to be pretty literal. We see that the greatest god of them all, the mighty Zeus, has returned to Earth and dubbed the human race unworthy of continuing to exist and lay waste to this once fruitful and promising world, and has decided to take matters into his own hands and start a cleansing, if you will, of a majority of the population and kind of start from scratch all over again. Major disasters happening all over the planet, millions and millions of people dying, all the while more gods from different religions and cultures start to pop up everywhere and lay their influence down and, start getting followers. Amidst all this chaos, we find a somewhat ragtag team of brilliant men dubbed the Collective, who are trying to find an illogical answer to all this madness. This book has the feel of one of those, summer blockbuster, end of the world kind of deals to it, but has a way more biblical tone to it. And I kind of like it. Mike Koss' art fits the overall house style that I've come to expect and enjoy from Avatar, but yet giving it his own flair. While John Hickman provides a dark, ominous tone to the book, leaving the reader expecting a not-so-happy ending by the time he's through writing this story. You've got almost every major pantheon of gods represented here, from Thor, Odin, Loki from the Norse mythology, to Anubis, Horus, and Bast from the Egyptian mythos, to even Zeus, like I said before, Ares, and Aphrodite from Greek mythos. There's even more than that, but you've got to pick up this book and check it out to see it. It looks like the mighty gods are coming together to split the riches of this planet amongst each other to rule as they see fit. It's kind of like a case of out with the new and in with the old, if you want to call it that. This book is truly something different and totally worth a pickup. Now, welcome to another rousing segment of everyone's favorite English subject in high school, Fanboy Vocab, where we take all those big themes, undertones, and tricky devices writers use in comics to keep us all guessing and amazed by the power of their craft and break it down for the everyday man. Now, this week's word or term, depending on how and when it's implemented, can cause either a major controversy, severe backlash, save a story. Well, basically, this tool can cause a lot of damage or be a real lifesaver, and in some cases, that's literal. And that word, or should I say term, is Deus Ex Machina. Deus Ex Machina, which in Latin meaning God from the machine, is a plot device whereby a seemingly unsolvable problem is suddenly and abruptly resolved by the contrived and unexpected intervention of some new event, a character, ability, or even an object. Now, depending on how it's done, it can be intended to move the story forward when the writer has quote-unquote painted himself into a corner and sees no other way out, to surprise the audience, bring the story to a happy ending, or as a comedic device. A deus ex machina is generally deemed undesirable in writing, and often implies a lack of creativity on the part of the author. The reasons for this are that it does not pay due in regard to the story's internal logic, and is often so unlikely that it challenges suspension of disbelief, allowing the author to conclude the story with an unlikely, although perhaps more palatable, ending. Following Aristotle, Renaissance critics continued to view the deus ex machina as an inept plot device, although it continued to be employed by Renaissance dramaticists such as the great Shakespeare. How about that? Comic book writer Matt Fraction was even criticized for using the quote-unquote deus ex machina by employing Franklin Richards' massive but ill-defined powers in the 2011 Marvel comic event Fear Itself, in issue 5 specifically. Now, on the flip side of the deus ex machina, there is something called a eucatastrophe, which was coined by J.R.R. Tolkien, writer of the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit novels. Now, this term can refer to a sudden turn of events that ensures the protagonist does not meet some impending fate. For example, the giant, majestic eagles that save Frodo and Sam from certain death on Mount Doom in the final part of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the Return of the King film. He also referred to the great eagles, or some critics have referred to the great eagles, in several places in The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings as a dangerous machine. Those same critics have argued that the eucatastrophe, and in particular the eagles, exemplify a blatant use of the deus ex machina. Now, others contend that the two concepts are not the same, and that eucatastrophe is not merely a convenience, but is an established part of a fictive world in which hope ultimately prevails. So there you have it, people. A gigantic galactic-sized mouthful of fanboy vocab, or in this instance, fanboy lecture. For this week, we'll see you next time.
All right, so that's another episode of Variant Edition, and it's always fun to hear Lewis speak a little bit of Latin.
That's right. A lot of people think I'm Hawaiian, the tattoos and everything. It's very misleading. I'm actually very Hispanic. I don't act it, but I am. In case anybody were wondering, I am.
Yeah, we like it that we can actually teach you a little bit of something if you weren't paying attention in high school English class.
Yeah. Basically me. I wasn't paying attention in high school. This is what this all focused on. I'm trying to relearn everything now.
It's like, see, comics do teach you things.
Yep, that's right.
It's like I think I learned the word omnipotent, or as Lewis likes to say, omnipotent.
Omnipotent, yeah. Omnipotent. Omnipotent.
That was like my big vocab word that I learned when I was younger. So.
Yeah, Mike gave me a big lesson on that a couple years ago.
So anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves here. So that's another episode. As usual, we have a few things that we have to make sure we say at the end of every episode.
That's right. You guys find us on, make sure you tweet us, you share, you like us on Facebook, tell all your friends. Find us on YouTube, iTunes. Just spread the word.
And I think we want to get to the point where we have some fans, and they're getting back to us, and we love the feedback. The next thing that we need to do is we need to grow the show, because a lot of the people that used to watch our show don't know that we're back, because, let's face it, we had a big gap with a lot of empty promises. But we're back. So if you can share, send us a screenshot or a link to something that you share, and we will try to share something with you.
Yeah, maybe a little prize, a bumper sticker, a t-shirt, my cell phone number. It'll be something really nice.
Yeah, it'll be worth it. So we're working out all the details on that now, but don't let that stop you. Go ahead and get started. So then we have our website, which is
variantedition.com.
It's still in progress. In the next few weeks, it actually should be finished up pretty soon. So like I said, we've been focusing on the show.
Yep.
So this is more important.
We want to make sure we get to you guys on a very frequent basis.
Exactly.
If not weekly.
Eventually,
we'll get there.
We're getting there.
Yep.
If you're a creator of any sort, let us know. We have a lot of ways to be in contact with you, and we're interested in new projects and interviews. Let us know if you have any ideas. We're open.
Oh, very much so. And again, a big thanks to Lena and Steve, everybody over at Little Shop of Comics in Fanwood, New Jersey, for
Scotch
helping
Plains,
us.
Fanwood,
Scotchwood. I like to call it Scotchwood. Scotch Plains, New Jersey, for get us relaunched and getting us going and giving us their support.
And very soon you will see the inside of their very nice store.
Their beautiful store, yes.
So that's it for this week. We'll have another review-filled episode shortly following, and then some big stuff in a couple weeks following that.
That's right, and the con season's going to start soon, so we're going to have to start planning that and looking forward to a lot of those goodies.
Yes. All right, thanks.
Bye.
A bit more meandering, but it seems more natural.
Yeah.
So we'll stay here. We'll do it again.